aims and the purpose of Hashem in the world, as defined in the Torah, and viewing the Torah as the blueprint and the instruction manual for the Jewish people as to how to run their lives as a klal and as pratim.
I have no doubt that in their minds they did.
Maybe in their minds they did, but they were wrong. I'm not a postmodernist. I'm not afraid to say that someone was wrong. And I believe that if they really thought they were truly correct, then they were truly mistaken. And they were misled and misconceived what the Torah is all about. However, the Torah is not about living in Germany or living in the United States or in Australia or anywhere else. The Torah is about, first of all, following Hashem's instructions and doing Hashem's will. And Hashem's will is, as described in Sefer Shemot, Parashat Yithro, before we receive the Torah, and with good reason, because this is the underpinning of the entire Torah. It says there, وَأَتَمْ تِيُولِي مَمْلَكَةْ كُهَنِيمْ وَغَوْي قَدُوش. A mamlacha is the word in the Torah for a state. What we call today in modern parlance a state. A medina in the Tanakh means a large walled city. A kingdom, that is to say a state, is called a mamlacha. The purpose of the Jewish people is to be mamlechet kohanim and a goy kadosh. Where? Obviously in Eretz Yisrael. And now I'm going to give you the blueprint and the instruction manual on how you're supposed to go about doing this.
I just have a question. I'm sorry.
Please.
You referred earlier in our session to Harav Hagon, Rav David Weiss Halivni.
Yes.
Okay. Is the Rav familiar with his work, Revelation Restored?
Somewhat. I haven't read it, but
Okay.
I've heard some of the things written there.
Okay. Is the Rav aware that he accepts a critical view of the Torah's compilation in that book, and he gives an explanation for it, very similar to the one that he gives for Gemara? You can look at it and you can read it, but is the Rav aware of that?
In general terms, I'm aware of that. As I say, I haven't read the book, at least not yet.
Okay, so in other words, I'm not sure whether where the Rav himself. My objective observation is that the Rav holds every word of the written Torah to be from not Ezra, but to be from Har Sinai. It could be I'm mistaken in that, but my impression is that maybe I'm wrong, but my impression is that the Rav's position of the text of the Torah is that it goes all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu at Sinai, and not like the biblical critics at Hebrew University would hold of. I'm not sure whether
that is correct. However,
okay,
it is completely unreasonable and irrational to believe that the Torah could have been copied innumerable times over thousands of years without mistakes creeping into the text.
I'm not talking about like the mistakes of Vayihi or Vayu Kol Yemei Noach.
Right.
I'm talking about mistakes, the full-blown errors and critical texts. And
I understand what you're saying.
That David Weiss Halivni agrees with in his
All right.
book.
Well,
Revelation
let me
Restored.
preface my remarks by saying that I do not consider myself to be an expert in this issue, in this area of biblical criticism and all the arguments that have been brought for and against. I'm aware of the fact that many things that Wellhausen and others said in the past have been disproved. I'm not saying everything has been disproved, but I know that certain things have been disproved. So we're talking about an area where intelligent people can and should, if they're so minded and they're capable of doing so, to investigate and see what has been written and why it's been written, and see on what basis it has been written. If, for example, a Bible critic says, well, this obviously couldn't have been written by this prophet because it's describing events that took place after his lifetime, that's hardly a proof, because he's assuming that there's such thing as prophecy, and therefore he couldn't possibly know what would be in the future. But a person who believes that prophecy is real, that Nufu'ah is something that exists, will not be surprised that someone can describe events that will happen in the future.
I think David Weiss Halivni. Are you familiar?
You're asking me about another person's point of view, as described in a certain book, which I admit I have not yet read. I've heard of the book, and
Yeah,
I've heard
I
certain
would
people
suggest
say
the
certain
Rabbi.
things
Okay.
said about it, but I have not read the book, and I can't really comment on things I haven't read.
Okay, I would suggest the Rabbi.
I would tell you as follows. I believe that Torah is min hashamayim, as the Mishnah in Masechet Sanhedrin tells us that we are supposed to believe. That has always been the assumption of the Jewish people. And to my mind, there's a very simple, clear-cut proof that that is the case. And that is that the Jewish people and Jewish culture, which is Torah culture, it's the expression and the manifestation of what the message and the thrust of the Torah, as it was received and as it was understood and as it was assimilated by the Jewish people over thousands of years, we see in reality, in history, both in the past and the present, we see the Jewish people are qualitatively different in every way from every other nation on earth, and qualitatively superior in every way in terms of their culture, in terms of their moral code, in terms of their in terms of the simple concept that we're about to read in the Torah tomorrow. Has there ever been another nation, another culture, another system that has said such a thing and made it a household concept that every child in Gan hears about?
We do find the golden rule in other cultures.
Taken straight out of the Bible, yes.
Now, before you find the golden rule in Confucian.
I admit readily, whether I should be embarrassed or not, I don't know, but I admit readily not being an expert in Confucius. But if you in the Western world, at least, if you hear them say, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," well, we all know where that came from. The Jewish people are unique. Their culture, their religion, their way of life is unique, and it is clearly of a superior type in every way from all other human cultures with which at least I am familiar. And we see that by learning the Torah that we have, the Torah Shebichtav and the Torah Sheba'al Peh, we see that we are infused and we are inspired and we are led to lead a way of life which is unique and special and beautiful and majestic, and nothing at all like the rest of the nations of the world. And that, to me, is the clearest proof and indication of the Torah is min hashamayim, because in a document that was not min hashamayim could not possibly have achieved such a thing. If you take a forgery like the Quran, which is loosely based on certain things in the Torah, together with all kinds of other hallucinations and concepts, and you see what that has done for the Arab nation, for the Muslim peoples on earth, well, we know exactly where it's taken them. It's taken them to flying planes into skyscrapers, and just the other day I saw in the New York Times, 81 people killed yesterday in Baghdad. They're doing it to their own people. This is where Islam, which is a forgery based on the truth, leads people who believe in that system. The Western world today is basically given up on Christianity anyhow. The churches in England are empty. They don't know what to do. No one comes to church. All right? In Italy, the churches are half empty also. The seat of Roman Catholicism.
In the United States.
Parts of the United States are different. I mean, America is actually very different from Europe.
10 to 20,000 congregations.
You're absolutely right. And the United States is a very unique and very clearly different reality from Europe. Western Europe and the United States are not at all the same. Under this new president, I suspect that things may slide, but nevertheless, the fact is, in America you have printed on the money, or stamped on the money, "In God we trust." No other nation has that. Not even Israel at this point has such a thing on its money, unfortunately, for now. And that says something. America is definitely a much more religious and God-believing nation than any European nation. Well, at any rate, to return to the essential point. The essential point is that we see that the Torah creates a kind of human being that no other culture, no other system, no other document has ever been able to produce, even come close. And if that's not a proof, and what it has produced is something so beautiful and so grand, that if someone wants to tell me that it's dreamt up by a bunch of ancient scribes or priests or what have you, then I would say that look at the results and judge for yourself. That couldn't possibly be the result of a human mind.
Okay.